Hi, I'm Violy. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a politician. I'm just someone who watches, listens, prays, and thinks. For a long time, I kept my thoughts to myself. I didn't think I had the words, or the skill, to put them out there. I used to say, I have ideas, but I'm not a writer. But that changed when I discovered something that gave me the courage to speak up. Artificial intelligence, particularly ChatGPT. Now, anyone can write. You just need to have something to say. You don't have to be eloquent or have perfect grammar. All you need is conviction, something in your heart that won't let go. Then you talk to ChatGPT, give it your raw thoughts, a few guidelines, and it helps you bring those ideas to life. That's what happened to me. I had something I needed to say, not just about politics, but about something deeper. I kept seeing this strange, almost irrational hatred toward one man, Donald J. Trump. I've never seen anything like it in my lifetime. People didn't just disagree with him, they despised him. Everything he did was wrong, even when it wasn't. People mocked his looks, his family, his very existence. It wasn't politics anymore. It felt spiritual. That's what led me to write this. Not to defend Trump as a person, but to expose the kind of hatred that blinds, divides, and destroys. I believe there's something behind it that most people don't see. So, if you felt confused, angry, or even afraid about what's been happening in our world, maybe this message is for you. I invite you to walk with me, not as a political analyst, but as a fellow soul searching for clarity, truth, and light in a world that seems to be spinning out of control. This is not just about Trump, it's about us and what's really going on. It started as a joke, then it became a trend, then it became normal. People would say, I can't stand the sight of him, or he's not my president, or he makes me sick. But they weren't just talking about policies or personality. It was something more intense, almost violent. There was a strange kind of rage attached to the name Trump, one that didn't match the usual political banter. I would listen to the news, watch videos, read comments online, and I began to feel uneasy. Something was off. I had lived through presidents who were loved and hated. I had disagreed with leaders before, but I had never seen this level of hatred, so blind, so emotional, so unforgiving. People would react to him like he was the devil himself. If he said the sky was blue, they'd argue it was green. If he signed a good law, it was ignored. If he made a mistake, it was blown out of proportion. And if he succeeded, somehow it was evil. I started asking myself, why does he trigger people so much? Sure, he can be loud, proud, and politically incorrect, but is that really enough to justify this kind of fury? Then I heard a phrase that helped me understand what I was seeing: Trump derangement syndrome. It's not an official diagnosis, but it describes how some people seem to lose all objectivity and reason when it comes to him. They hate him so much, they can't think straight. And that's when I realized, this isn't just about Trump. This is about hatred and how it blinds people. Hatred can turn otherwise decent people into mockers, liars, and destroyers. It clouds the mind and poisons the heart. It rewrites memories and invents motives. It makes people believe the worst, even when there's no evidence, and it refuses to let go. It reminded me of a warning in Scripture. Light has come into the world, and people loved the darkness rather than the light, because their works were evil. Hatred isn't just an emotion, it's a doorway. And sometimes what walks through that doorway isn't human. Esau didn't hate Jacob because he was wicked. He hated him because of the blessing. It wasn't about personality. It wasn't about fairness. It was about the favor of God. Something Esau couldn't control, couldn't reverse, and couldn't stand. And in that moment, I thought, this is what's happening today. What if the rage we're seeing isn't really about Trump's character, but about something symbolic? What if, flaws and all, he represents a kind of calling, a disruptive blessing that threatens those who feel entitled to rule? I'm not saying Trump is Jacob. I'm saying the hatred toward him follows the same ancient pattern, the same spirit. It reminded me of another story. Saul and David. David was a young man, humble, brave, and obedient. He wasn't trying to steal the throne. He served Saul faithfully. And yet, when Saul heard the people singing, Saul has struck down his thousands, and David his 10,000s. Something snapped inside him. Jealousy took root, and that jealousy turned into obsession, then into rage. From that day on, Saul saw David not as a blessing, but as a threat. He tried to kill him. He hunted him like a criminal, not because David had done evil, but because God's hand was on him. Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him. That one verse says it all. When people are walking in pride or rebellion, the presence of God on someone else can make them feel exposed, enraged, even irrational. And once again, I saw the pattern. This isn't just about Trump. This is about how the world reacts when God disrupts their expectations, when someone is used, even imperfectly, for something bigger than themselves. The enemy stirs hatred to silence them, discredit them, or destroy them. After seeing the Esau and Jacob story in a new light, I started to pay closer attention, not just to people's words, but to the spirit behind them. There's a level of anger you can explain, but there's a level of rage you can't. It's not just debate anymore. It's demonic. You can hear it in the tone, the mockery, the cruelty. You can feel it when people scream, curse, or wish death on someone just because they voted differently. It's not normal. The Bible warns us about this. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness. That's not just poetry. That's reality. There's a spiritual war going on, not between political parties, but between truth and deception, humility and pride, light and darkness, and hatred is one of Satan's favorite weapons. It blinds people so they can't see what's right in front of them. It turns truth into offense, and blessing into a threat. Think about Jesus. He healed the sick, fed the hungry, and preached love. Yet the religious leaders hated him. Why? Because his presence exposed their pride. He carried a kind of authority they didn't understand and didn't want to submit to. They weren't just irritated, they were enraged. It's the same spirit we see in the crowds who shouted, "Crucify him!" Not because he committed a crime, but because his very existence disturbed their comfort and control. That's the spirit we're dealing with now, and no politician, no platform, and no human effort can defeat it. This is spiritual warfare, and it must be fought with spiritual weapons. We can't fight hate with hate. We can't win by shouting louder. We have to see what's really happening and pray like never before. This isn't about defending a man. It's about recognizing the battle behind the headlines. Because if we don't see it for what it is, we'll end up fighting the wrong enemy. When Donald Trump first announced he was running for president in 2015, I didn't think much of it. I actually thought it was a publicity stunt. A celebrity stepping into politics? It felt more like entertainment than anything serious. But then 2016 came, and the world began to shift. I saw friends who were calm and reasonable suddenly become angry and aggressive. I saw church-going people posting insults and memes that were downright cruel. I heard respected journalists using words I never thought I'd hear on national television. And when Trump won the election, it was as if someone had lit a fuse. People weren't just disappointed, they were furious. There were protests in the streets, celebrities calling for resistance, news anchors in tears. It was one of the most emotionally charged moments I've ever witnessed in politics. And it didn't stop. For the next 4 years, it was like living inside a constant storm. Every day, headlines screamed. Every word he said was twisted. Every policy was framed as a threat. And if you dared to say anything positive about him, even just one thing, you were labeled, mocked, or unfriended. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't worshiping Trump. I wasn't blind to his flaws. But I also couldn't deny that something was off with the reactions. Something deeper was happening, not just politically, but spiritually. It reminded me of how Jesus described the last days. Because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. That's what I saw happening. Not just policies dividing people, but hearts growing cold, families torn apart, churches split, friendships shattered, not because of crime or sin, but because of differing opinions. Hatred became fashionable, outrage became currency, and truth became whatever people wanted it to be. That's when I knew this wasn't just politics anymore. This was a spiritual disease, a blindness of the heart, and once you've seen it up close, you can't pretend it's normal. So I started praying, watching, listening, and slowly, the pieces began to come together. The more I watched, the clearer it became. We are not just dealing with political opinions, cultural shifts, or media bias. Those are just the surface ripples. Underneath is something ancient, something intentional. We're up against a spirit of deception. It disguises itself in slogans and trends. It hides behind movements that claim to be progressive, compassionate, and inclusive, but its fruit is division, confusion, and rage. What we are witnessing is not new. The Bible has already shown us this pattern. Satan has always hated what God blesses. From the Garden of Eden to the temptations of Christ, the enemy's strategy has been the same. Twist the truth, stir envy, and turn hearts against God's plan. He doesn't need to possess people. He only needs to poison how they think. Paul said it plainly. In their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel. Blindness, that's the word. Spiritual blindness makes people call good evil and evil good. It makes people cheer for lies and scoff at truth. It turns hearts cold and proud, unable to receive correction or even admit the possibility of being wrong. And it's not limited to politics. This spirit is creeping into every part of society, education, entertainment, social media, even churches. It's aggressive, it's seductive, and it's strategic. So what are we to do? First, we must not fight with the wrong weapons. The enemy wants us to respond in the flesh, with fear, with anger, with sarcasm, with despair. But our weapons are not carnal. The weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We fight by praying, by speaking truth in love, by staying grounded in the Word, and by refusing to join the chaos. We fight by seeing clearly and helping others see too. This isn't about defending Trump or any politician. It's about discerning the spirit of the times. If we can't see what's really going on, we'll be swept away by it. But if we stay awake, anchored, and alert, we can stand, and help others stand too. For a long time, I kept quiet. I watched the world change. I listened to conversations where truth was twisted and lies were applauded. I stayed silent as friends turned against each other over politics. I bit my tongue when people mocked God, praised confusion, or shouted hatred, all in the name of progress. Part of me thought, maybe I'm just too sensitive. Maybe I should just pray quietly and not get involved. But the more I stayed silent, the heavier it felt. There comes a point where silence isn't peace, it's surrender. I realize that if we, who see what's happening, remain quiet, then the only voices left will be the loud, angry, and deceived. And when lies dominate the airwaves long enough, people start to believe them. Even good people. Ecclesiastes says there's a time to keep silence and a time to speak. This is a time to speak, not to argue, not to shout, but to bring clarity, truth, and hope. I don't write this because I think I'm better than anyone. I write this because I care. I care about the souls being swallowed up by hatred. I care about the young people who are confused. I care about the church, the family, and the next generation. I also care about those who have been tricked into thinking this is just politics. It's not. This is a battle for the mind, the heart, and the soul of a nation, and even the world. I may not have all the answers, but I know when something is wrong. I know when the enemy is at work, and I know the only one who can open blind eyes and soften hard hearts. Jesus. So if you're still reading, thank you. This message isn't about convincing you to vote one way or to idolize a man. It's a wake-up call to see beyond the surface and ask, what spirit is driving all this? And more importantly, what side of this battle am I really on? If you've made it this far, I want to thank you. You didn't have to read this. You could have scrolled past, unfollowed, or shut it out, but you didn't. And that tells me one thing. You're still willing to think, to reflect, and maybe even to pray. This message wasn't written to win arguments or make enemies. It was written to ask hard questions, the kind of questions that push past the noise and into the soul. Is it possible we've been manipulated by something deeper than politics? Have we allowed our dislike of a man to open the door to hatred? Have we confused truth with personality, and passion with pride? And most importantly, have we become blind? The good news is, God still opens blind eyes. He still heals hearts. He still gives grace to the humble and wisdom to those who ask. But we have to want it. We have to be willing to let go of our bitterness, our bias, our pride, and say, Lord, show me what's really true. Because in the end, it's not about Trump. It's not about parties or policies. It's about truth versus deception, light versus darkness, Christ versus the spirit of this world. This is your invitation, not to agree with me, but to go deeper, to take what you've read, bring it before God, and ask Him to show you what's real. If there's anything I've said that is off, He'll correct you. If there's truth in it, He'll confirm it. He is faithful. So I leave you with this simple prayer. Lord, open my eyes, teach me to see, help me walk in truth, even when it's unpopular, and give me courage, not to follow the crowd, but to follow you. Amen.